So one of the most common questions that I get asked is how much should I be spending on marketing? And it seems like a simple answer, but it's not. And I'm going to show you exactly why. So first of all, if you Google this question, you're going to get conflicting answers, right? The industry magazines are going to say spend 4 to 7% on marketing. The financial consultants are going to say spend 2 to 3% on marketing. The marketing agencies, big shocker, are going to say spend 5 to 10% on marketing. And then those startup guides on how to start your dental practice, how to market your dental practice, are going to say anywhere between 15 and 25%. So the experts are basically disagreeing on how much you should be spending on marketing by 10 times. So that tells you something, right? If the numbers are that far apart from each other, from different types of people regarding one topic, then these people are just guessing out loud. And then the bigger problem is that if you've just started a practice or you're making a slow shift into private practice, then percentage of zero revenue is still $0, right? So the people that need the answer to this question the most are the ones that this percentage split up doesn't even make sense for them. Common sense says that there should be another way to think about this, something that's more calculated. And it basically comes down to 3 numbers. If you know your numbers, the question of how much you should be spending on marketing answers itself. So the first number is the patient's value to you, right? A patient typically comes in 1 to 2 times a year. They get an x-ray here, they get a filler done here, maybe an implant later on down the line. A typical patient will spend in an 8-year lifetime with you, they will spend around $4,800 or $4,500, right? Now, obviously, that's a conservative number because just an implant alone can cost that much. Industry standard says anywhere between $5,000 to $20,000 plus is the average lifetime value of a patient. And that's before that person refers a family member or a friend. Let's be conservative here and say $5,000 is the number of the lifetime value of a patient to you. Number 2, how much of that $5,000 are you actually keeping? It's coming into the door, but then you're paying the labs, you're paying your hygienist, you're paying the rent. For most general practices, that return is between 30 and 40%. So around $1,500 to $2,000 of that $5,000 is profit for you. That's the number that you're actually spending against. Now, question number 3, what does it cost you to bring a new patient in? And this is the number that almost nobody knows about their practice, but it's the most important one. It's basically all of the marketing spend divided by how many patients have you actually brought in through marketing. Right now in general dentistry, for a healthy marketing campaign, that's around $150 to $300 per new patient that walks in through the door. So now let's put these numbers together. You have $5,000 that is coming in from the average lifetime value of a patient, and it costs you $150 to $300 to bring that patient in, right? On the high end, it costs you $300 to bring that patient in, and that patient is bringing you, on the low end, $1,500 of profit, right? So that's 5 times what you've spent to bring that person. That's how much they should be bringing you back in. So for every dollar that you're spending on marketing, you should be getting around $5, right? So a good rule of thumb is that $1 spent on marketing should bring you at the minimum $3 back. And this is the part where your marketing starts to become a machine rather than an expense. When you understand your numbers like that, this is something that you put money in, money should be coming out. And let me show you ours, because I don't want this to just be a theory for you. We have spent $374 rather, in a specific stretch in July, right? And in that stretch, we brought 4 booked appointments, which roughly translates to about $94 per booked appointment. Real money, real booked appointments, and we can trace how much we spent to get that individual all the way down 3 years down the line to see how much value has actually come from that individual. Now, I'm not showing you this because 94 is a magic number, but because when you can see those values for your own practice, marketing spend doesn't become this like stressful conversation. It's just a matter of fact. Now let's talk about where this marketing money actually goes, because marketing is not just one item, it's a menu, right? There are a lot of different things that you could be investing in. So let me just walk you through it briefly. Google Business Profile, right? It's free, it's local, it's where your reviews and your location sit. Now, a lot of business owners don't really look at it and they don't update it more than a few times, maybe total. That's basically like leaving the lights off in your lobby and turning off the open sign. Then there's local service ads. Local service ads are sitting at the top of the Google search results page with a green check mark that says that it's been Google verified. And I like this because specifically for marketing budgets, you only get charged per call, right? So when the individual calls you and you answer and they're a qualified lead, then Google is going to charge you. But if it's not a qualified lead, if it was a spam call, you can dispute that and not get charged for it. And that runs, depending on your city, between $50 to $150 per lead. Then there's regular Google ads. Now this is about clicks, right? This is for dentists on average around $8 per click. For the higher ticket items like implants, that's around $12 to $25, right? Which sounds crazy to pay for a click itself, but then you remember how much an implant actually brings you in. So it's worth bidding on those high intent keywords that are also location specific. Now, SEO is basically paying someone to help you rank on Google Maps and on Google Organic, right? When somebody searches underneath the sponsored results, there are the organic results. And that's where you want to show up in the top 3, because those are the money spots. Paying somebody $1,500 to $2,000 a month to do that can be painful when you're first starting a practice, and it's better when you have cash flow to invest in. Google Business Profile is a good first place to start when it comes to ranking organically, but it's really beneficial when you have the time to invest in it. You'll see 3 months before you can even see something like how many keywords you're starting to rank for. A year minimum for you to start to actually see patients coming in organically. And then there's Meta, Facebook and Instagram, right? This is where our $94 booked appointments came from. This is where you're generating demand, right? You're not capturing demand like people that are searching for. You're sliding in front of somebody when they're scrolling and hanging out, and you're basically showing them why they should care about a specific thing. Maybe they've had some tooth pain that they forgot about and you kind of remind them about it. That's kind of where Meta comes into play. Your content is going to make them care. So now let me show you what happens when you put money behind one of these campaigns, right? How does money move when you're investing in Google Ads? Let's say you're investing $3,000 in Google Ads. At about $8 a click, that roughly buys you around 375 clicks. Out of those, about 1 in 10 is actually going to reach out, either through a call or through a form submission, or even a text message. So that's basically around 38 leads at around roughly $75 to $80 per lead. If your front desk is killing it and they're super responsive, about half of those people are actually going to show up and sit in your chair, right? Which brings it to about 18 or 19 leads at about $160 per lead. Now look at that chain for a second, right? $3,000 brought you clicks, but it's your intake team and how fast they are, how kind they are, how savvy they are with the technology that you've put in their plate. That's what is going to determine whether you're booking 19 appointments of patients sitting in your chair or 8. Same ad spend, wildly different outcomes. That's why I keep saying that the system is more important than the budget. Now, what if money is genuinely tight? Like $3,000 is just not in the conversation. Let's say $500, right? Here's what I would suggest a friend spend $500 when it comes to marketing on their practice. The first purchase, and it's nearly free, is tracking and your Google Business Profile, right? You want to know where every patient is coming from, and you want to make sure that your Maps listing is high up in your local city. Reviews, with replies to those reviews, photos, categories selected, the whole entire thing that they offer. The second is fix the catching. When somebody submits a form, you should be texting them immediately. Simple follow-ups that are not bothersome, but something that at least shows there's somebody behind this door that you're knocking on. Consolidating that into one place where communications just flows from one area is huge. I know practices that are texting, that have WhatsApp going, that are replying in DMs on Instagram, on Facebook Messenger separately, and then they also have their inbox, and they're managing all of these different channels. If you can put that into one area, everything will be so much easier for your intake team. Getting more leads for a system that is not properly tracking these leads and tracking communications is like buying water for a leaking bucket. The third thing I would invest in is local service ads. Again, you're only being charged per qualified call, right? You can dispute things that are just spam. So there's nothing wasted in this process, right? And you're going to be at the absolute top of the Google search results. Very, very important for local businesses like yourself to be on local service ads. And for a small budget, it's the absolute safest paid channel for this marketing game. The fourth thing I would suggest is Google Ads and a narrow campaign to match the small budget. And a narrow campaign meaning just focus on a local region and 1 or 2 services that you want to target in that region, right? So not dentist near me, but more like pediatric tooth pain doctor. And then fifth, once the machine is starting to produce and these other channels that are more priority in terms of where to put your money in are producing revenue for your business, that's when you want to really invest in SEO. SEO is a really, really big game changer. If you have a solid SEO, you don't even need to spend on ads. People are finding you organically. You're dominating your local region. This is something that once you can get to that point, that's when you can turn off the ads, right? But for SEO to actually compound, you need to really invest in at least 6 months, ideally a year, so that you can start to see those results that are driving revenue. It's the long game, and it's what makes all marketing cheaper over time. Notice that ads are 3rd and 4th on this list, right? They're not the first thing that you want to invest in. There's a lot of foundational things that you can build that will automatically start to bring in patients. You don't always have to be spending on ads when it comes to spending on marketing. Spending on marketing might just look like bringing a really solid person into your team so that you can lay the foundation in a cleaner way than you did, or in a fresh way so that you can start with the best systems in order. So if getting a patient into your chair costs less than what the patient is actually worth, then the answer to the question of how much should you spend on marketing is as much as you could handle, right? As much as your chairs can handle, as much as your team can handle, as much as your system can handle, right? Because if you're flooding the gates, you're bringing a lot of leads at a low cost per lead, your team is just going to get swamped. And it's a good problem, but this becomes a capacity question, not a marketing question. But if that number is bad and you're paying way too much per patient, then spending more on marketing is the wrong answer. Because here's what I see all the time. The ads are fine, the organic looks great, the content is clean, the campaigns are by every measurable metric doing decent, but the patients are still not coming through the door. Why? Because money is leaking after the click, right? Somebody calls, it goes to voicemail. Somebody submits a form, nobody responds for the next 5 hours. Somebody sends a text message, it gets sent into somebody's inbox that doesn't see it, and other people can't jump in. From the outside, everything looks like it's good. Your marketing campaigns, the impressions, the metrics all look good, but there's a plumbing problem on the interior. A dentist that spent $5,000 on ads last month, but doesn't know where the patients are for that ad, is just going to fire the ads team, right? But the patients are probably there. They probably had a lot of individuals ready, but they weren't quick enough, or they weren't organized enough, or, they were just too busy, right, to be able to do that manually. And real quick, while we're on that point, the plumbing is what we do as a company. Yes, we do Google Ads. Yes, we create content. Yes, we'll help you with your website and your SEO. But the plumbing is really the place that is the most beneficial for our clients. Every single time I get to the point on plumbing, that's where I have the best conversations. Because most businesses, they understand the most important things that they need to have that are out there, right? Like Google Ads, Meta Ads, Facebook content. But those things that people don't see, right? The things that are kind of middle of funnel, that's the intake system, right? That's your automations. That's the way that you're source tracking, the way that you're sending conversions back to Meta, right? So that the optimized campaign consistently keeps feeding you the highest quality leads. The plumbing is what we work on. So I know some of you might actually still want a percentage, right? What percentage of my revenue should I be spending on marketing? What I can do here is I can give you an idea of the percentage based on what stage you're in. If you're starting a new practice, do not budget off of your current revenue, right? You don't want a percentage of a low number that you don't want to be your future number, right? So think about 1 year, what you're expecting to collect, what you want to collect, and budget 15 to 25% of that. I know it sounds heavy, but that's the cost of getting into a space that's already a little bit saturated where people don't know you exist. If you've already established your practice and you're looking for growth, whether that's a new service or a new schedule of an associate that you want to fill, think about 8 to 12%. If you've established and you're just maintaining, you can think 3 to 5%, right? Just the basic marketing that can keep your schedule full and then reactivate old patients. And the one honest note on this is that the agency fees should typically fall under that percentage. So everything all in, the cost to bring in a brand new patient into the door, the softwares that are involved, the teams that are involved, the ad spend that's involved, all of that should be fitting into that percentage. So here's your homework. Pull those numbers. Go into your patient software and figure out what is the average yearly value of a patient for you? Straight revenue that they're bringing in, and then the profit margin on that. Second, figure out what it costs for you to bring in a new patient, right? What did you spend on ads, and how many patients have actually come in? If you can't honestly get that number, then tracking is the first place that you want to think about, right? Because you can't really spend and judge on something that you can't see. Third, you should think about your open chair time, right? Is your chair open enough for you to just focus on filling that chair? Or do you want to think about getting a second chair, right? Different practice, different stage of growth. So the answer to the question of how much should you spend on marketing, the percentage that you might be looking for is not the answer, right? You want to understand what a patient is worth, right? How much does a patient bring you in, and how much are you spending on marketing? If that first number is greater than the second number, just keep the faucet open. It's working. This page that I've been showing is going to be in the description. If you want to look through it, take your own time and kind of crunch your own numbers, feel free to do that. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. See you guys in the next one.